How's it going, my truant people? Dr. Slacking, the Slacking Doctor, back with something, I'm going to say new, but it's not exactly new. Back with the draft analysis for the Bowland Bovines, which is very, very new here for the Season 2 of the ABC. That's the Associated Battle Community that I co-commissioned with my boy Nico, aka Pokemon Trainer Hakeem. You guys all know Nico at this point. He's been on the channel plenty of times. One of my best friends here in the community, and as I say, co-commissioner of the league with me. We are back for Season 2, finally. I don't know how long it's been since Season 1, but I think it finished in 2017, so certainly it's been like over 6 months. It's been a while. It's been 2016? 2017? I don't know what I just said. But it's been over 6 months. I know that much. We're back with Season 2. We are now a 24-man league. I believe we were a 12-man league last season, so we have doubled in size, which is incredible because when we started Season 1, I didn't even know if we would get 12 teams together, so to now have 24 is amazing. Shout out to Nico and everyone else for helping to grow the league, helping to bring in so many more people. I've met so many fantastic people in the community over the past year, and now to be running a league with so many of them in is incredible. Before we go any further, another shout I've got to do is to my man 2-Bit Crow. You guys know him by now. He does a lot of the graphics for the channel over the past 6 months or so. He hooked me up with the Bowland Bovines logo because I couldn't say Lake District Spirits no matter how hard I tried. I kept screwing it up at the start of the videos. No one else could say it, so every time I watched other people's videos when they battled me, they screwed up the name of the team. And I was like, we need to just get something different. The Lake District Spirits have not been retired. That team name will be used in the future, but for Mimia drafts, and you'll see what I have in mind there in the future too. But from now on, serious leagues where we are competing and trying to push on to be the best we can be, we will be competing under the name of the Bowland Bovines. And that logo right there, right below me, which I'm looking at with the horns kind of protruding up onto me, with Miltank, how now, Blue Cow, with the rose in its mouth, coming back from that Pokemon Sapphire Sleep Lock. If you're around from that, you remember the Slacking logo. Was it the Platinum? I think it was a Platinum stream that we did on Twitch. The Slacking with the rose in his teeth. That was all 2-Bit Crow's work, and now it's become kind of a part of what we do here. It's on the layout. It looks sick. I now live in Lancaster, which is represented by the red rose, so it feels so fitting to me, and it was just one of those wonderful coincidences. And I think Miltank looks hilarious trying to look mean with that kind of that gritted teeth look when it's just a Miltank at the end of the day. But moving on, what did I draft for the Bowland Bovines in our first draft? What team did I pick up? I need to shout out my front office because they sat through weeks and weeks of draft plans. This was a points-based system, so what that means is that basically every Pokemon was assigned a value and we had a budget. So things like Huron Black, Celesteela, they were like 20 points. We had some very risky unbans, so Tapu Lele, Magearna, Mega Mawile. These Pokemon, I think there was one more that I can't quite think of off the top of my head, Aegislash. The first of those were all unbanned and made 30 points, so very, very expensive. That would cost 1/4 of your points, I think, or something like that. Something like that. And the final one, Aegislash, was unbanned. However, it is not allowed to carry an item, so it was only like 17 points. But not hanging on an item on Aegislash sucks because it doesn't have leftovers for recovery or Z-moves for damage out, but whatever. It's still an incredible mon, hence it's 17-point price, but it's not quite as good as, say, like a Celesteela with leftovers, in my opinion. We were very, very strict with the prices because we were doing some fun things. For example, Megas do not have to Mega Evolve on the first turn. So something like Mega Slowbro, for example, can keep pivoting in with Regenerator. You can fire off a Skull and you can pivot out. You don't have to Mega Evolve. That's fine. Mega Sharpedo could get 3 turns of Speed Boost and then Mega Evolve. Mega Gyarados can force people to think of 50-50s with its typing. You know, what kind of move do you go for? What kind of coverage do you go for with Gyarados? Fire off a fighting move and they don't Mega Evolve, then suddenly they're resisting it. So that brings in some really cool things. We made everything quite expensive. This was quite a harsh budget system, so we didn't have a lot of money to spend. We each randomized each other's divisions because, as I said, we are a 24-man league and we are split into the Masquerain Conference and the Slacking Conference. I am in the Slacking Conference, of course. Nico randomized my draft list because I originally randomized the draft order for both divisions and I got second pick in Slacking Division. And Nico was convinced I was cheating. I wasn't cheating, of course I wasn't cheating, but convinced that I was, he insisted that we randomized each other. So I re-randomized Masquerain. He got final pick, which is still decent in my opinion. And then he randomized Slacking Conference, and I got first pick. So in his attempts to screw me out of second pick, he managed to give me first pick. Whew, that was pretty exciting. However, I realized very early on that I didn't want to take Celesteela. I didn't want to take Tapu Koko because somebody else in my front office wanted to try Koko, and I wanted to give them the opportunity to draft that. I didn't want to take Lele, McGinn, and Morwile, any of those high budget ones. I couldn't afford them. In my opinion, they weren't worth the value. I didn't want to take Kieran Black. And so I was left there, and I originally wanted to take Excadrill. Excadrill, pick 1, round 1. I mean, understand it's an incredible Pokemon. I was going to draft Sand. Then I wanted to take Zygarde 50%, and I had all these different plans. And the night before the draft started, after a week of work on the plans, I was in call, or the morning before it started, I think, I was in call with Checkmate Ben, and he said to me, just come up with, like, an offensive core or 3 mons that you want. Don't tell anyone, because everyone in my front office liked different plans. Strumpful liked this plan, Aquarius liked this plan, Checkmate liked this plan, Nico liked none of the plans. So it was just like, no one could be Sean Blind Messiah. He liked the bulkiest of plans, you know. So it was just like everyone liked different things. So Ben was like, just pick some stuff you want to use. Don't tell us, and just do it yourself. And then maybe ask us for advice halfway through the draft when we can't, you know, make you regret the decisions you've made. So that's exactly what I did. And I came up with 3 mons, my first 3 mons that I knew I wanted above all else as an offensive trio, because I had complete belief that I could use them superbly well. 2 of them were new to me, and 1 of them was one I was experienced with. So first up, round 1, we had to draft a Mega, and I decided to draft a Mega. And it was one of the Pokemon that I've never tried before. I decided to draft Mega Lopunny. And if you see me looking down there, guys, it's because I'm going to be live editing this video. So hopefully you can see Mega Lopunny on your screen like I can right now. I don't know how this is going to work. I should have said at the beginning I'm live editing. But it should save me time editing afterwards. It means that I get it to you guys even sooner, which is the goal here. So round 1, I picked up Mega Lopunny. Lots of people tell me that Mega Lopunny is the best Mega in draft. A lot of other people say it's the best Mega in draft against weak opponents, but good opponents can counter it fairly easily. I found prepping for Mega Lopunny relatively easy in PEBA. I just, you know, did some things that I'm not going to say because I don't want people to do them against me. Although they're fairly obvious, but I felt secured prepping against that. However, I do think that it's an amazing Mega Pokemon. It has such high speed. I think its speed is like, is it like 130 or something speed? I don't know off the top of my head. In fact, we can do this while we do this. Why not? Because you guys can't see it, but I can. I can get the stats up on screen, which I've never been able to do when we've been recording a draft analysis. So that's even better. So yeah, it has 135 base speed and 136 attack. That is pretty monstrous. That is pretty impressive. It gets Fake Out, it gets Quick Attack, it gets High Jump Kick, it gets Return, it gets Power Up Punch. It has some cool moves. I think it gets more coverage as well as that. But primarily, this thing just hits super hard. The way I kind of view this is think of Swellow in the LTC. I've got myself a physical Swellow in the ABC, and Swellow has really come into its own for me the past few weeks, just clicking Boom Burst and killing things. That's how I feel with Lopunny. You know, you just click High Jump Kick, or you click Return, and you kill things, and you're all right there. So I'm super happy to have Lopunny. I think it's going to be a great Pokemon, and I can't wait to use it. Moving on, the next pick, and what I can actually do here, I believe, is I should be able to... Why is this not working? No, help me live edit. Here we go. I should be able to make Mega Lopunny. There we go. Appear on the screen. There we go. Hopefully that appeared for you guys. So moving on. What did I go for next? Well, I needed something to synergize well with this. And one of the things that Mega Lopunny breaks extremely well is Steel types. Most of your normals kind of struggle with Steel types. They have resistance. But even Aegislash, because of this scrappy ability, that's the other thing I should say. Ghost types can't switch into Lopunny because of the scrappy ability. So even though it's relying on normal and fighting stab, it's okay relying on those stabs because the only immunity to both those stabs is ghost types, and scrappy ability means we hit ghost types. So that's awesome. There isn't a steel type in format that can really switch in on it. I'm trying to think if there's like a steel bug, maybe like a Scavalier could switch in on it. Some things like that. Bronzong could maybe switch in on it. But they're going to take neutral damage. Pretty much everything is going to take neutral damage from one of its 2 stabs. I'm sure there are some things that resist both stabs. Are there? No, I don't think there are, because what resists normal? Rock, steel, and ghost with the immunity. So, yeah, I don't think there's anything that can resist both stabs unless I'm missing something, because fighting is super effective on steel and rock. So that's pretty cool. And knowing that I can handle steel types with my normal type, I felt free to draft something that I was very comfortable with, giving me a very different speed tier, giving me a defogger that I wouldn't really run defog on, but it's an option potentially, giving me a pivot, which I really like, and a potential slower pivot. It's not a slow pivot, you quite often run it Scarf, but a potential slower pivot if I wanted to do that thing, with Hydreigon. And Hydreigon doesn't really like steel types. They switch on it on its Dragon Stab and stuff. Doesn't really like fairy types either, which Neither does Lopunny, so that kind of sucks. But I'll get onto that in a minute. This is the final piece of the trio. We'll get there eventually. But what Hydreigon does is it gives me a massive, massive special attacker to complement my massive physical attacker. Now teams can't just bring AV against me every week, or they can't just bring physically defensive mons. They have to think, well, which one do I want to run? How do I do this? And if they bring fairy types against me, do they bring a specially bulky fairy type to handle Hydreigon, or do they bring a physically bulky fairy type to handle Lopunny? If they don't bring a physically bulky fairy type to handle Lopunny, they need to have a physically bulky psychic types, and not a lot of teams necessarily have access to physically bulky psychics. So it just, for me, this pair really works. I say pivot option, Specs was so viable on this set, Scarf is so viable on this set, Expert Belt because it gets amazing coverage. Just a solid mon, and was one of my potential Z mons. However, I didn't Z this mon. I gave something else to Z Crystal, which we will get to as I say later. But I'm really, really excited to have Hydreigon on the team. And I forgot to give you the nicknames as well. I should give you the nicknames as a go. So Mega Lopunny is going to be nicknamed Pamela. If you know why, then you're probably as old as me. If you don't know why, I'm not going to explain it. But Mega Lopunny is nicknamed Pamela. Hydreigon is nicknamed Aquarius after Aquarius in my front office, so shout out to them. If I remember, I try and put all the links to my front office in the description, but I usually forget. So if you're in my front office and you've made it this far, comment down below so that people can see you and go and subscribe and stuff if they're not already. So yeah, Hydreigon was our second pick, and hopefully I can now add that to the layout as we go. Why is it not... Ooh, okay, that's not working as well as I'd hoped. But there we go. There we go, a Hydreigon on the layout, so that's pretty nice. Third pick, we drafted a Pokemon which I have nicknamed Strompful. And we drafted this Pokemon because I was really satisfied with my offensive presence. I didn't think the third part of the trio I was starting with was going to get sniped, so I felt confident taking something defensive at this point. As I've said, I have a problem with offensive fairies, particularly. Something like a Mega Gardevoir, a Mega Altaria, a Scarf regular Gardevoir, things like this would hit this team super, super hard, and I don't have a switch in. So I wanted to grab a switch in, and I was thinking maybe Skarmory, but Skarmory gives me rocks, gives me spikes, gives me defog. However, it doesn't pivot, which I wish it got U-turn. If it got U-turn, I might have drafted it. And it's a little bit passive, and I didn't want to get anything too passive because the only criticism of my PIBA draft is occasionally it can be a little bit passive. So I wanted to get something that people would say this is passive, but I don't think it is. So I wanted to get something a little bit different, giving me a Fairy Resist. So we actually picked up Amoonguss, Strompful the Amoonguss, because Strompful always drafts this Pokemon. It seems it's one of his core Pokemon that he relies on a lot. I don't think Amoonguss is that passive because A, Foul Play stops Physical Sweepers setting up on you. B, Spore stops a lot of things setting up on you. And C, it doesn't have to constantly click Roost or Synthesis because it has regen. It's a great pivot kind of switch out. You fling it in, you sponge up some hits, you bring it back out again, and it's got its health back. You can run it AV, you can carry hidden power techs on it. I just think it's a super, super cool Pokemon, and I think because of the fact it doesn't have to run any healing moves, and because of the fact that it has access to Foul Play and status like Spore, I think that it's not super passive in the way that Skarmory could be. Skarmory could be Setup Bait or could be Taunt Bait. This thing isn't really Taunt Bait or Setup Bait. So I kind of like Amoonguss for those reasons. People may disagree with me, and that's fair enough completely. But it gave me an amazing Fairy switch in, crucially. I can just switch Fairy. This is on Fairies. It doesn't take 4 times damage from anything. It's not ground weak, which is pretty nice because we already have the Levitate one in Hydreigon, so a lot of times people will be picking things up and they'll be grabbing poison types that are ground weak. Ground weakness I see a lot in draft, people with common ground weakness, and something like Setup Garchomp would just run through them. This is something that at least is neutral because of that grass typing, so I think that's really nice. And this was to kind of start the defensive backbone to our team more than anything, really. That's what this Pokemon was here to do. It was here to bring a bit of sturdiness to the team, I guess. So there we have our shiny Strompful on the layout because I'm planning on bringing this thing shiny all the time. The first two I'm not. I don't really like shiny Lopunny. I know it's quite popular, but I prefer regular Lopunny, and the same with Hydreigon. So the fourth pick in the draft, and again, I'm trying to add a bit more bulk here, but I don't want anything too passive. I feel like I really need a viable hazard remover at this point, and I would like another pivot. Yes, I have Baton Pass on Lopunny, but most of the time with Lopunny, you're trying to get damage off. I have U-turn on Hydreigon, which is pretty cool, and I have a nice sponge, but I think momentum is really important in Pokemon, so I wanted to try and grab something else that at least had a pivoting option. I wanted it to be bulky, and I wanted it to either clear hazards or set hazards. They were my kind of thing. I'm starting to think, right, with 3 drafts in, we haven't, 3 Pokemon in, we haven't got any rock setters yet, we haven't got any hazard setters at all, in fact, and we've got 1 defogger that's, you don't really want to run defog all the time. So we picked up something that's going to be nicknamed Northrop Spirit, and if you know what Northrop Spirit is, then that's super cool. I didn't. I had to look up the kind of origin of this Pokemon to get this nickname. If you know what it is, then you may have already guessed. But our 4th pick in this draft was Togekiss. I've never used Togekiss before. I keep forgetting I drafted it, if I'm honest. This is the one I keep thinking, like, what is that last Pokemon that I drafted? And it's Togekiss. I don't know why. It's a very, very bulky Pokemon, but it can be offensive. If we start getting paralysis spread around and things, you know, if I bring a Mungus with Stun Spore just to spread around paralysis, it can be a real threat with Serene Grace / flinches. I've seen people run it like Body Slam to get like paralysis and stuff, which is just a bit cheeky. It's not very physically offensive at all. It has Dazzling Gleam, so it gives me a special fairy, which is really nice, and it hits fairly hard. Gets Nasty Plot for setup, but crucially it also gets Baton Pass and Defog. So it's a bulky Pokemon that can sponge hits just like a Mungus, but it can actually pivot with Baton Pass. It can set up and pass those boosts. So let's say we Nasty Plot, Baton Pass into Hydreigon. Oh my goodness, that thing is going to be an absolute monster. Or it can just set up and sweep on its own. So I think this Pokemon is really, really cool. I think it has a lot of utility. It's a really versatile Pokemon, and that's not something that I usually draft. I like things like Darmanitan, where I know, okay, I'm slapping a Choice Scarf on it, and I'm just Flare Bullet single U-turning everything. This Pokemon's a little bit different. This Pokemon's a little bit more like, well, what set is most viable this week? I'm super excited to have it on the team. I don't know how I'm going to use it, but I hope that I have some success with it. I know Aquarius in the front office was very confident that it's a good Pokemon and highly recommended it. So I hope they're right, and I hope that we can have some joy with it. So hopefully we can add our shiny Togekiss to the layout there. It looks basically the same, but I just like to see the little shiny animation come up on Showdown. So we're going to run it shiny every week. But that is Northrop Spirit, the Togekiss. For what number? 5th pick now, and we wanted something to pair it with Amoonguss, and I took Togekiss because I was scared it would go, and I really wanted a bulky, viable defogger. What I wanted this round was Slowbro. However, just before my pick, well, actually quite a while before my pick, Slowbro got sniped by Eevee Master, who was in Owl with others. He sniped Slowbro, and I was gutted because I wanted that regen core with Amoonguss. But it was okay because Slowking was there. Slowking was 1 point less. I would take Slowking. It was fine. And then more time passed, and I realized that, well, Slowking doesn't fit the draft as well as Slowbro would have done, just in terms of it being more specially bulky instead of physically bulky. Slowbro is just a much better Pokemon, in my opinion. You slap an AV on it, and that thing will never die. Especially with Amoonguss here, I would have such a bulky regen core. It would be amazing. So I was a little bit gutted, and I just kind of changed the plan. I was going to pick up Empoleon instead. And then, out of nowhere, Eevee messages me, and he's like, hey man, I screwed up. I thought Slowbro was the especially defensive one, and Slowking was the physically defensive one, because I thought at the time it was weird, because he also picked up Tangela, and I was like, why wouldn't you want Slowking with Tangela? That makes more sense. So he was like, do you want to trade for Slowbro? You get Slowking, and I'll give you the Slowbro that you told me I sniped off you. And I was like, yes. Back to plan A. We'll go back to the old plan. We can have our boy Slowbro. So we did draft Sean the Slowbro, completing that regen core with Amoonguss, which I'm so happy with. And as I said, this mon is really physically defensive, which means if you slap an Assault Vest on it, because again, it doesn't have to rely on slack off recovery, we can just pivot around between Amoonguss, Slowbro. We're not clicking recovery, but we're getting recovery. Again, it's not super passive because it gets Nasty Plot, it gets Trick Room, it gets Yawn. So if something tries setting up on me, I just Yawn it, and then it has to go out. If something thinks it's going to come in and set up on me, and then I click Trick Room and Nasty Plot, suddenly I'm the sweeper, and they're the ones that are scared. You can run Rocky Helmet just like you can with Amoonguss and just throw it out there for chip damage. I just think it's such a cool Pokemon. I love Slowbro's design. One of my many plans, the Zygarde plan in particular, revolved around Zygarde Mega Slowbro because I just think Mega Slowbro would be so much fun. But in the end, we went with regular Slowbro. And I think now, looking at this team, we have Mega Lopunny, Hydreigon, one special, one physical offensive monster. We have Amoonguss, we have Slowbro. One physical, one special defensive monster. We have Togekiss, a balanced mon that can be defensive, offensive, that gives hazard removal, gives a pivot option. I really feel like at this point in the draft, we are looking super strong. We spent a lot of points, but I think that we are looking super strong, and I feel good about that. So there's our shiny Sean added to the layout. I think shiny Slowbro looks so dumb, but in a way that makes me love it even more. Like, I just think its shiny colors are not good. Well, they are kind of, like, purple and gold should be good, but it's just weird. But I kind of like it for that exact reason. So that's why we have shiny Slowbro on the team. If people don't like shiny Slowbro, I get it. It just amuses me. I just think it's funny. And then next up, our next pick. Is this our next pick? This seems out of order to me. Let me just check. The order I have here seems a little bit out of order to me, and I want to be, even though we're at the wheel, so the next two picks came at the same time, I guess I can just say them together, because obviously being first pick, meaning I get that wheel, I had to wait a long time between picks, then you get two at once, you get two at once. These are out of order, and it is important because I thought they were. Let me just quickly change this round. I don't know if these are going to be centered anymore because I can't see them without showing you guys them, and I don't want spoilers. So we're just going to have to hope that that's somehow centered. So first round we picked up Megalopony. On the next wheel we picked up Hydreigon and Amoonguss. On the next wheel we picked... Oh no, it didn't matter. They're on the same wheel. The next wheel we picked up Togekiss, Slowbro, or Slowking and traded for Slowbro. And then the next pick... So it didn't matter what order, I've just messed up for no reason. But the next pick, we picked up something that I mentioned previously we were going to pick up, and then I decided I wouldn't, and then I decided I would again. We picked up Empoleon, and I know we have double water at this point, but this does something very, very different to Slowbro. This gives me a third Defogger, but it also gives me my first Stealth Rocker. I think that Empoleon is a very reliable Stealth Rocker. It has a great typing. If it got Roost, it would be an incredible Pokemon. With Defiant and Agility and potential weakness policy, it can be an incredible setup mon as well. If I pass a Nasty Plot into it and then get off an Agility, I think it's an Agility, not an Autotomize or Rock Polish. But anyway, it can just be a really, really cool Pokemon. I've always loved him. Well, I haven't always. In recent years, I've grown to love Empoleon's design. When it first came out, I didn't really like it, but I love it now. I think it's such a cool Pokemon. It has so much utility. Again, this was one that Aquarius really recommended. Notice here Aquarius recommending Togekiss and Empoleon because they're utility mons, and they're not mons that I usually draft. Usually I draft specialist mons like Lopunny, Hydreigon, Amoonguss, Slowbro, where you know what they're going to do. But this has so many different sets you can run with Empoleon, or a few different sets, that I think it makes it really cool. And it gives me my third defog option, which I think is important. And as I say, my first rocker, which was hugely important. So this is Nico, our Empoleon, because Nico was the king in Piba. He's now the emperor in the ABC. He is just the MVP always. So that is why we have Nico, the Empoleon. I don't mind doubling up with water as well, because they only share one common weakness in electric. This thing isn't weak to grass with steel resisting. So I'm completely okay with that kind of stacking up the weaknesses. And having a steel that doesn't resist grass isn't really an issue when you have a Amoonguss on your team. Like, who cares about grass Pokemon, honestly? So that's why we have Nico, the Empoleon, just giving me a bit more utility again. Now, hopefully he lines up pretty well on the layout there. That's not too bad. He looks a little bit small, though, so we're just going to increase his size because he's a very important person, so he should be bigger. Slowbro's tail's overlapping him, which is out of order, but what can you do? You can't have it all. So there we go. That's Nico, the Empoleon. Now, the next pick is nicknamed Dread because it was a huge snipe on Dreadful Dragonite. And it's a Pokemon that I'm already kind of regretting drafting and thinking about trading away, which is hilarious because his draft was a mess because I sniped this Pokemon. I took it way too early, in my opinion. This Pokemon does not deserve to go round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Doesn't deserve to go round 7. It's like a round 10 Pokemon, in my opinion. It gives me extra bulk on the team, it gives me hazard removal, and it gives me stealth rocks. And that is Claydol. I needed a ground type. I didn't have a ground type. I had a bit of an electric weakness starting to stack between Togekiss, Slowbro, and Empoleon. So I needed a ground Pokemon for sure, and I was starting to look at the budget picks. I needed to go cheap with my ground type. I was looking at Sandslash. Sandslash is alright, but in my opinion, Sandslash isn't that bulky, and it doesn't hit that hard. It just kind of spins, sets rocks, and dies. And that kind of upsets me. I wanted something a bit different. So I drafted Claydol because it has Levitate, which I think is super useful. I think Levitate is always a great ability to have. It just gives you even more switch-ins to ground types, so the ground types can't just run, you know, one hidden power to hit all your levitators. I mean, looking at it, hidden power ice hits all of my levitators. But that's not the point. I like having multiple levitators. It just causes a bit more of a problem. You don't know quite what's going to come in on your electric type. Not on your electric type, on your ground type. And I think that this giving me spin, giving me rocks is very useful. It has trick room. It really is very bulky. I believe it can pain split on things, which is important. My only issue is it's a bit meh. It doesn't really hit hard enough, and it doesn't really take hits well enough, but it's kind of cool. But it's not a great ground type, and ground types, there are a lot of great ones, but then I wasn't a budget. So I'm very conflicted about this Pokemon. The fact that it was a huge snipe on Dreadful Dragonite, who then sniped me massively with Incineroar, which he took, makes me happy, because at least I sniped him before he sniped me, so that's funny. But yeah, I don't know how to feel about Claydol. Hopefully it'll prove me wrong. Hopefully it'll turn out to be one of the best Pokemon this season. At the minute, I feel like it's just filling a role, but only time will tell. And actually, Claydol looks a little bit big. Maybe I had the Pokemon on this side smaller than that side. Maybe the Pokeballs are smaller. I don't know. But there we go. There's Claydol on the layout. Looking fine. And our next pick, skipping over Nico because we've already done him. Our next pick was because Incineroar was supposed to go right here. Incineroar was supposed to be this pick. And Dreadful Dragonite had the third pick, so as we're wheeling back up, as we're snaking back up to me, Dreadful Dragonite snipes me and takes Incineroar, and I realise that I need a fire type, and I'm like, god damn it, I want Darmanitan. I want Darmanitan so bad. It gives me physically offensive fire type, it gives me U-turn, so it fills the two main things that I wanted Incineroar to do. However, it was like 3 points more than Incineroar, and at this stage of the draft, I didn't feel like I could justify those 3 points. I was really starting to run low on cash. If you look at those bottom 6 Pokemon sort of down there, you can see like they are all really great Pokemon in my opinion, kind of high tier. So I was like, I just don't have the funds to go for Darmanitan. So I need another fire type, I need another U-turner. And one thing that I would say about my draft so far is we have Lopunny at 135 base speed. Hydreigon at 98 base speed, I believe. Amoonguss at like 30 base speed, I think. Togekiss at about 80 base speed. Slowbro at about 30. Empoleon probably 50 to 70. Not really sure on Empoleon's speed, but I know it's not super fast. Claydol, again, I think it's going to be between 30 and 50. Claydol actually, I think, is a bit faster than I'm giving it credit for there. Let me just check Claydol and Empoleon. I think Claydol's faster than I think. Yeah, Claydol is 75. 75 base speed on Claydol. And Empoleon with 60 base speed. So both a little bit faster than I gave them credit for. Nonetheless, I feel like that was a bit of a slow team. So the next one I picked up has 126 base speed. 10 slower than Lopunny, so it's filling in another speed tier. Not a vital speed tier in my opinion. Once you get past 110, I don't think they're that important anymore. That's just my opinion. But at least filling in a different speed tier. So our next pick is super fast fire type that still gave me U-turn. It's still a fire type. And that is Talonflame, and we have named a Scrub after Scrubulator Ben, because apparently he would appreciate Talonflame being called a Scrub. So we have Talonflame. I'm excited to use Talonflame. I think it's best when it's a Zmon, and it's not a Zmon on my draft. We haven't seen any of the Zmons on this draft yet. I couldn't afford the points for it because of what I wanted to be my Zmon. Yeah, it's another setup sweeper with Swords Dance into Flare Blitz or Brave Bird. It hits super hard after the Swords Dance. Before the Swords Dance with base 86 attack, I think it is. It doesn't hit that hard. However, you know, a Choice Banded set, it's a bit like Swellow in the ABC, where its base special attack is not that high, but when you put Specs on there and you click Boom Burst, because of the base power of the move is so high and Specs boost you so much, it hits so hard. And Talonflame's a little bit like that. Banded Talonflame is still going to hit like a small truck, kind of that Asda delivery truck that comes to your house with your shopping, not the one that takes your shopping to the shop, if you see what I mean. Anyway, Talonflame's going to be a semi-decent Pokemon, I think. It can run bulky sets with Flame Body, Will-O-Wisp, things like that, which we will be using during the season for sure. Technically, it's another Defogger, but it's a 4 times weak Pokemon on a draft with decent removal at this point. I mean, I have Claydol, Empoleon, Togekiss, Hydreigon, arguably. So arguably I have 4 removers. So I have decent removal. I don't know. I think Talonflame has utility, but it does feel like a pick that we were forced to make because we didn't get Incineroar. That's the way it feels. However, I'm still hyped to use it. I still think it could be a great Pokemon. I know it got a lot of hate in the Gen 6 meta, but I wasn't really present then, so I don't have any hate for it. I just think it's a cool Pokemon. I think it has an awesome design. We're actually going to use Shiny Talonflame because I think Shiny Talonflame looks really, really nice, and it was the first Shiny I ever caught. Fun story. In-game, you know, not hacking or anything like that. Full odds Shiny I just caught in Kalos, so that's pretty cool for me to have that on the team. On a very personal note, I guess. Now we have 3 picks left. 3 picks left. And here I decided to pick up that third Mon that I said I started the draft with. I knew I wanted Mega Lopunny, I knew I wanted Hydreigon, and I knew I wanted this Mon. And every round I planned to pick it up. And then every round that went by and no one else picked it, the less points they had left and the less I felt threatened that they would pick it. So I felt like I could have left this to last pick and just no one was planning to take it. However, it wasn't worth doing that. My last 2 picks were just kind of throwaway Pokemon anyway. Not throwaway, but utility Pokemon anyway. So I decided to get the one that I had been planning since day one, which fortunately hadn't got sniped all the way through. So we have Checkmate. Checkmate the Scolipede. And I love Scolipede. I think its shiny looks awesome. I think it's such a cool Pokemon with speed boost. However, I think it's a little bit slept on. I think that people mostly talk about Scolipede as a speed baton passer, which we're not allowed to do in this league, or as a hazard stack Pokemon because it gets twin spikes, it gets toxic spikes and regular spikes. So I think that people kind of see it in that way, that it's something you slap a focus sash on maybe, or you know, you just get up hazards, or you pass your speed into something else. But I think that Scolipede deserves respect in its own right. 112 base speed means we now go from 98 up to 112, 126, I think we said, and then 135. So we're starting to fill in those speed tiers a little bit more. The only gap is between 98 and like 112, which is kind of a big gap. Those Pokemon that hit like 110 base speed are going to be able to run like Adamant or Modest, which sucks, but that's how it goes. But once this thing starts speed boosting, if it can get an SD off as well with its base 100 attack, once you get a Sword Stance and then stab Mega Horn, which is such a high base power move in of itself, I think that's really, really scary. I think as a late game cleaner, this thing can function. I also think it can kind of function as a wall breaker. I know most people think it needs to set up, but honestly, a Z Mega Horn, if their team has no steel types left or whatever, will punch a hole in something. Like, it's going to really hurt. And as I kind of alluded to there, this is our first Z-Mon on the draft. It was a 15-point Mon, which means we had 5 points left for our other Z-Captain, which I'm going to get to in just a second. So we had to pick a bit of a budget Z-Captain second. If during the season I feel like it was a waste of Z-Mon and I want to give it to Talonflame and I don't even know what I could partner with in Talonflame, but something else, or if I want to give it to Hydreigon, or if I want to give it to Togekiss, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that. But for now, I'm really, really psyched to have Scolipede on the team. And I feel like Scolipede handles those bulky fairies that Lopunny and Hydreigon don't appreciate. So I really felt like that as an offensive trio worked super, super well because it kind of says like, hey guys, every type is covered by these 3, more or less, resistance and a super effective wise. So I just think it's a really, really nice offensive trio. I'm really hyped to use them, and I think they could put in a lot of work this season. So yeah, that's Checkmate the Scolipede. The reason it's called Checkmate is because it was my favorite of that trio. It was the one that I most wanted to use, having used Hydreigon before and not being 100% sure on Mega Lopunny. And as it was Checkmate Ben who advised the new kind of drafting tactic to me, I named it after him. So there we can see our shiny Scolipede on the layout, and his shiny just looks so clean. I love that shiny with those kind of really light blue accents on it. Kind of like, is that teal? Is that what teal is? I don't even know what teal is, but it's some kind of aqua. I don't know. It's a really nice color regardless. So I love that. And then last round now here. This is the final wheel with me. The last 2 Pokemon we're going to pick up. I needed a 5-point Z-Captain, and I needed an electric type, because the only thing I didn't like my draft going up against was Bulky Waters. Yes, Scolipede, Hydreigon, and Lopunny would wear them down. Bulky Waters do not want to switch in on Lopunny particularly, or on Hydreigon, or on Scolipede if it's got a Sword Stance up. So it wasn't like I was afraid of Bulky Waters, it's just I needed something to break them a little bit better, I guess. So I knew I needed an electric type, and I knew I needed a 5-point Z-Mon. And I actually got those 2 separately. So let's start with the 5-point Z-Mon. I picked up another controversial Pokemon from Gen 6. I picked up Facepalm, and you might be able to guess what this is from the nickname. But I picked up Facepalm, the Barbaracle. I think Barbaracle is a pretty cool Pokemon. I don't hate its design like everybody else does. I mean, I don't know what is going on with its design. Why does it have eyes in its hands? Why does it have a hand for a face? I don't know. I'm sure they had their reasons. Why is it a bit of rock? Why? What? It makes no sense to me either. Okay, it makes no sense to me either. But I just think it's kind of cool. It's just out there. It's wacky. It's stupid. It's derpy. It's funny. I just like it. And if I can get a shell smash off with this thing and then Z liquidation, oh my goodness, that is going to hurt. And I'll be honest, I thought Tough Claws boosted liquidation. Or Tough Claws boosted Z moves, sorry. So that was kind of why I had it as a Z captain. I found out since that Z moves don't get boosted by Tough Claws, which sucks. But even so, like, liquidation, Z liquidation is going to hurt. Z Stone Edge, being able to get 100% accurate Stone Edges is always so nice. So I quite like rock types as Z users anyway. I think this is a pretty cool Zmon. I never see Barbarical drafted, really. So I think it's really cool. I think HLD Productions, Randy, the GBA D League, who I watch quite a lot, he has Barbarical in that, and that was a bit of the inspiration because I was like, wow, he drafted Barbarical. That's such a cool mon. I want to have a go with that. So there was a bit of inspiration there to kind of try this thing out. So I'm hyped to use that. And hopefully we can add it to the layout now as well. This live editing is probably super unprofessional, but, you know, I think it's working. I think it's working. So last pick was to try and handle those bulky waters. One thing I would say is that at this point, I'm pretty satisfied with my offensive present. Talonflame, Scolipede, Barbarical, Togekiss, Hydreigon, Megalopony. I feel like I'm hitting pretty hard, and my defensive backbone, Amoonguss, Togekiss, even Hydreigon can be bulky sometimes, Slowking, Empoleon, Claydol. I feel like I've got a really nice balance of bulk and offense. And I've got some good pivot options, some baton passes, some setup sweepers, some wall breakers. I got stuff going on everywhere. So I'm pretty happy with that. So the last pick was really just an electric type. That was all I needed. And I only had 3 points left, so I didn't have a lot to choose from. I kind of wanted Ampharos. I really like Ampharos. I think it's got an awesome design. However, we decided to go for something that has been recommended to me by Foss a million times, and I never pick it because I don't think it's that good, if I'm honest. But he convinced me this time. He talked me into it. So we actually picked up Electrode. Electrode is a cool Pokemon. Like, I started with Gen 1, so I pretty much like every Pokemon in Gen 1. There's not one I dislike that I can think of off the top of my head. So I'm okay with Electrode. My only issue with Electrode is it just doesn't hit hard enough for me. But as he pointed out, well, you are so fast at 150 base speed, I think it is. You can afford to be choice specs every week. Aftermath is a really, really cool ability sometimes just to, okay, well, you always have those positions in games where you've got to sack something, right? Some things may be set up, or you need to get a free switch into one of your wall breakers, or whatever it is. You've got to sack something. Having something with Aftermath means you're not just sacking it, you're sacking it and getting damage on something else. It gives me another pivot, which was really important, and a fast pivot, because my pivots like Hydreigon isn't super fast without a Scarf, Togekiss with Baton Pass isn't that fast, Scolipede and Talonflame are pretty fast passes. So this gives me like a third fast pivot, a Volt Switcher that I can reliably just send out, probably Choice Lock into either Volt Switch or like Hidden Power Ice against ground types. I think it's a pretty cool Pokemon. I just don't know how good it is. I just don't know. So we're going to see. We're going to see how it goes with Electrode. And that is Foss, our Electrode. I chose to nickname it after him because, as I say, he always recommends it. So, and we're going to run Shiny Electrode because that blue is such a nice colour. So that's the team. You can see down below us, that is the team. I think it looks pretty good on paper. There are 3 picks that I'm not 100% convinced on. Barbarical, Claydol, and Electrode. However, budgets exist. In a points-based system where we set such a strict budget, we had to kind of do that. So to give you guys an idea of some of the other drafts that were taken, just so you can kind of see the way that people worked. One of the best examples is Just Kurt, formerly known as Point Blank. Really good friend of mine, awesome guy, and Season 1 champion. He picked up, he did it to the extreme. So he picked up Tapu Lele, Aegislash, Alolan Ninetales, Kieran Black. That is an incredible Fairy Dragon Steel Core. That is an incredible top end of a draft, right? Lele, Aegislash, Alolan Ninetales, Kieran Black. Incredible. But then to balance that, he had to take Alolan Persian, great Z user, pretty cool Pokemon. Regular Blastoise, I haven't had much joy with it in LTC, I'm not that sure about it. It has its use. Sork, pretty cool Pokemon, but you know, it's Sork. It's not Megalopony. Rotom Fan, utility Pokemon for sure. Regular Ordino, nice Sponge Regenerator, yep. Quilladin, bulky, spikes, pretty cool Pokemon, love its design. And Mega Camerupt. Bottom tier Mega, but definitely has its uses under Trick Room, Terrifying. If you can get Rock Polish off, I don't know how much it with a Rock Polish to be honest, but it hits super hard at the very least. So you can kind of hear there, the bottom end of his draft was all utility. I'm not saying it's a bad draft, and I'm not saying they're bad Pokemon, far from it. I think it's an awesome draft, and I think he's going to make playoffs for sure. However, you can hear there that when you spend the points in this league, we made the budget so strict that he had to take like 7 Pokemon, 8, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 7 Pokemon that usually you would only take 3 of those on a draft at most. You know, you usually wouldn't have Quilladin, Ordino, and Rotom Fan on the same draft. And if you did, it would be because you got a top tier Mega. You wouldn't have Mega Camerupt too. So the point system is really made for some fascinating drafts in this league. You're going to hear week 1 we play Kenneth. I'm not going to spoil his draft yet, but his draft is amazing. So definitely check that out because we just gave people freedom. Points-based draft in a league which is supposed to be not super competitive, supposed to be more about fun. It gives people the freedom to say, okay, I don't have to fix draft 1 from A tier, 1 from B tier, 1 to C tier. I can draft whatever the hell I want, in whatever order I want, in whatever combination I want. I can just stack the top end of my draft and then take utter crap at the bottom. I can take everything balanced. Aquarius is a great example of this. I think Aquarius is like, all 11 Mons are very viable, but are mainly mid-range. You're free to do whatever. I think that I went mid-top for the first 8 picks, and lower for the last 3. And that's okay. We're going to see how that works out. I'm rambling now. Anyway, I hope you guys are hyped. If you still made it this far through all this rambling, then shout out to you. Comment down below if you're excited to see the ABC back. Season 2, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. It's so exciting for me because right now I am recording a LP. If you made it this far, I'm recording a new LP for the channel, which is giving me some nostalgia. Let's say that much. This is really giving me some nostalgia. So to have the ABC back on the channel, to have a new LP coming that feels good, it feels amazing. I'm so excited for the next 6 months here on the channel. I think it's going to be fantastic. So hopefully you guys too. Hopefully you guys are too. And hopefully you're hyped to see the Bowland Bovines in action for the first time, which should be up a week today. Hopefully you guys are watching this around the 30th-ish, 29th-ish. The next battle will be up a week today. So I hope you guys are excited for that. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'm going to shut up talking. Thank you so much for loafing around with me, and I'll catch you again next time.